I am a cycle-breaking business solutions advisor.
I am a cycle-breaking teacher.
I am a cycle-breaking mother.
I'm a cycle-breaking white dad.
I am a cycle-breaking black son.
I am a cycle-breaking worship leader.
I am a cycle-breaking transracial mom.
I am a cycle-breaking wife and real estate agent.
I'm a cycle-breaking musician.
I am a cycle-breaking worshiper.
I am a cycle-breaking white preacher.
I am a cycle-breaking violinist.
I am a cycle-breaking marketer.
I am a cycle-breaking black father.
I'm a cycle-breaking white daughter.
I am a cycle-breaking white business owner.
I am a cycle-breaking black daughter.
I am a cycle-breaking educator.
I am a cycle-breaking white privileged female.
Yo soy parte de la comunidad latina que rompe el ciclo.
I'm a cycle-breaking friend.
I am a cycle-breaking white mom.
I am a cycle-breaking black mom.
I am a cycle-breaking granddaughter of racists.
I am a cycle-breaking black mother of 2 sons committed to ending the cycle of violence against the black men of America.
Hey.
What's up, guys?
Not much. Chris, how are you doing, man?
Man, I am good. I am excited about today. It's going to be an awesome day. We're so glad everyone joined us today. Welcome to a conversation that we've been having now for a week, coming up on 2 now, and man, just really excited about today.
Today is definitely going to be fun and exciting. Thank you guys for joining us for week 2. As I said last week, if this is your first time here with us, thank you guys for joining us. As I said last week, we don't have a team to do any of this. And technology has had its way the past few minutes, but we didn't stop till we're here. So I pre-apologize if things get a little crazy on the technical side, but just thank you guys for being with us.
Yeah, man, for sure. And like Frank said, if this is your first time with us, man, we're super glad that you're here. We hung out last week together. My name's Chris. I am a husband, a dad. I work for a local company here in Middle Tennessee, but more than anything, what the Lord's doing in my life right now is I want to be a cycle breaker. And we talked a little bit about what that means last week, of just wanting to stop the cycle of what we've seen and don't want what our country is experiencing right now, and really seeing the people who are stepping forward and saying, I want to see the cycle of racism stop in our country. Yeah. We don't want that just to be a moment. We want that to become a lifestyle of some people. And so I'm really excited to hang out with my friend Frank here. Frank and I have known each other for a couple of years now. And just to be honest with you, man, just over the last couple of weeks, we've just had some raw conversations. And we had a raw conversation a little over 2 weeks ago now, and the more we talked about it, the more we were like, man, we just need to invite people in to come and be a part of this conversation with us. So, Frank, man, I'm really excited to do this with you again.
I am excited as well, Chris, and it's been amazing to see just from last week to now and the things that have happened in the world, but also just within myself and with you. So this is fun. I'm looking forward to tonight as well.
Yeah, Frank, some people are saying in the comments here that we don't have any sound.
I'm hearing you on my sound, on my feed. Someone said the sound is working, so yeah, some people can hear us.
So I think it may be. I think it may just be mine. Maybe just a little distorted or something.
Turn your volume down some, Chris. That'll help.
My volume down on my computer.
On your mic, and actually, I'll pull you back here a little bit. Someone said the sound is working, so yeah, some people can hear us. Sound. They say sound is. It could just be a little off. Oh, it's working now. Okay, great. We can hear you fine. Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Sorry, again, we have some tensions and technical things, but we're going to work through all of that for sure.
Cool. So, hey, here's the deal. Let me tell you about a couple things that are happening, and we're going to jump right in tonight, okay? So, here's what's happening right now. Is over the last week, guys, check this out. You all, through what you all shared and what you all invited people in, there's over 2,200 people. Check that out. 2200. Over 2,200 people have joined the Cycle Breaking Facebook group. This blew me away because what it shows me is that so many people want to join a conversation. They don't want to join an argument. They don't want to learn to talk. They want to learn to listen, and they want to ask questions so that they can understand. But here's what really blew me away. Over 2,500 people, Frank, joined 2,500 people joined our conversation this week. Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And so if you didn't get a chance to watch, you can go back onto the Facebook group. You can watch last week, join the conversation, be a part of it. But here's what we're going to talk about this week. Is we're going to be talking about this idea of where have we been and really where should we go? Where have we been? Where should we go? One of my favorite questions, Frank, you ask people, hey, what should we talk about? And one of my favorite questions that came up in the group was someone said this, and this is what I love so much about people and just really the courage and really the maybe the fire that's kind of going on inside of them right now, right?
Right.
But here's what happens is someone asked this question: how do we have solutions? Real solutions, tangible solutions, achievable solutions. I want solutions. Now, I love this because it shows the heart that you all have, that you want to see change happen. But here's my fear, because Frank and I were talking about this week. My fear is that we're going to jump back into a cycle like we've been talking about. We've become outraged by what has happened and has been happening for years in our country, right?
Right.
We want someone to tell us what to do because we're really unsure of what we should be doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
We do it. We start reading Facebook posts from this person or that person. We get online and we see someone do this or that. They recommend this book or that book. We start doing it because someone told us to, but we don't understand really why we're doing it.
Right.
But while we do it, we feel good. But because we don't understand, we lose interest in it. And we go back to our life. And then we come outraged by what happens, and we go back into the same cycle again.
Yeah.
And I love, Frank, as we were talking earlier this week, kind of one of the things that we started talking about is before you can bring real tangible solutions, you have to have real tangible understanding.
Right. Being able to process and understand what you're speaking into is more important, and that's something as I always try to say, especially now in my own personal life. I can't speak into anything unless I myself have actually walked through it or had an understanding of what's happening with it. So yeah, definitely.
So that's what we really want to talk about tonight. Is we want to talk about this idea of like, man, we want to know where we've been, where we should go, and so that when we start bringing these solutions together as a group, we're not just doing it because someone told us to. We're doing it because we understand where we've been, and now we can know where we go. So I'm just going to jump right in, okay? So like we're going to kind of go into the deep end, and I'm going to ask you some of the questions that I was asking this week, and then we'll just kind of continue to have this conversation, right?
Let's have it.
Here's the thing is this. It seems like every time we see something tragic, like what happened with George Floyd, I see someone ask the question about black-on-black crime and why this doesn't get the attention that something like white-on-black crime gets, why does it not get the same attention as police brutality crime gets?
Yeah.
Like, I see this on it, and it always happens if someone's saying, like, oh, well, why don't we ever hear about this? You know, and then they'll post some news story that was 6 years old, right?
Right.
And so, like, why do you think that is? What are your thoughts on black crime? And then, like, man, is there more to the story that maybe we don't even know with it? So as a black man in America, you hear black on black crime. What does that mean?
You know, I think for me, it sits at a unique spot within myself because the depth of black on black crime is something that comes from years ago. And if you don't really know that and you're not able to understand that, then you can get lost into statistics of today and not really understand the root and the heart behind where it comes from. So with all that's been going on, I would say that I have been digging up and learning so much more than I even remembered or knew that I knew. And tonight I just want to share some of that history of reality for us, the things that we have seen, the things that we have walked through, and just the truth about black on black crime. And really whether it was
let me share this real quick before you jump in.
All right.
We were talking today on my way home from work, right?
Yes.
And I loved what you said. You said, man, because you just said I was doing research.
Right.
I've been doing research this week. I can't wait to share some of the stuff that I've been learning, right?
Yep.
But you said I've been researching, and if anything else, this helps me understand what better? You remember what you said?
It helps me understand my blackness.
What?
You're welcome.
What does that even mean? Like, I get it, but like, you broke that down for me in the car.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So I want to share some things with you guys, and I hope you guys can see this. So, you know, I'm all about cycles and what they look like and how we process through them. And so I've done it again. I put together a cycle here that you guys can actually see the breakdown of transitional pieces of what I'm referring to and what I'm talking about. So if you can see that cycle, let me hear you say or see you put some prayer hands, some hallelujah, some yes, I see it, thumbs up in the comments to make sure that you guys are getting all the graphics that I'm showing you. But in this cycle, the main thing that I want us to really focus and dive back to is the reality and the life of slaves and what that actually looked like. There is a thing that many people may not know, that there were two types of slaves that were in the slave realm or ownership, I should say. And so there were the house slaves and the field slaves. And when you have this narrative and you have this understanding, it's like, well, what does that mean, the house slaves and the field slaves? It's self-explanatory. You had slaves who were in the house, and then you had slaves who were in the field. The ones in the field were the ones who basically literally took care of the fields, but they also were viewed less than the house slaves. So you already now start seeing this comparison and this unique tension between them. Once you get to the house slave, you had to be a certain complexion of blackness to be in the house. The structure in that was set up in a way where your value and your worth was basically, the lighter you were, the better off you were. It put it in a place where the perfect example, Chris, that I can think of is kind of like Michael Jackson. Everyone knows his song. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, right? Every person.
I was hoping you were going to open singing that tonight.
Doesn't matter if you're black or white. But every person knows that song. But I want to just really hone in on the realness of the tension. The journey that you get to see in his story and in life is the hard road that people of color have to take. And that is because of the color of your skin. For years, that determined how much you were worth. It determined your value. It determined if you were ignorant. It determined if you were worth being in front of people. It was everything that defined who you were. And that's the breaking piece that hurts for this. So when I say that, in that setup, the house slave was over, in ways, the field slaves. Because in the slave owner's mindset, the house slave had more value than the field slaves. So when you talk about tensions and black on black tensions and what that creates and how that looks and affects things, that's the place where you come. Whether you want to or not, it really starts there, because you start seeing people being put against each other, and the competition and the competitiveness of, if you are lighter than me, you're better than me. And the reality is, as a black person, you would think we're the same. Yes, your complexion is lighter than me, but even for the field workers, quite naturally, they're out in the field, so they're going to be darker, right? That's within itself. But the slave owners took pride in making sure that division was there. And then you find the hierarchy of the lighter complected black people, and then you create this inward tension between this one community that still keeps this unique cycle of, you're less than we are, the white people, you're less than us, but then you're better than the field slaves. So wouldn't you think there'd be some tension between the two in a situation like that? I would think that there would definitely be some tension. And I mentioned Michael Jackson because if you look at the industry that he was in, and he was creative, and he got to tell his story, he got to share so much, and really just be who he was. You know, he was a performer, over the top. And Michael Jackson, as a young man, was a black male. That is how we knew him. That is what we know about him. That is what we know of him. But if you think about over time, what began to happen? Michael Jackson began to transition. Michael Jackson began to change. And Michael Jackson found himself in a unique situation. And I think he may have sung, it doesn't matter if you're black or white, but I think it led to a place of, if you're lighter, then you're better. And so we see where he is in this position to where, look at where he was at the end of his career. If you think about some of the songs he wrote that I think was amazing. Some of my favorite songs, Black and White. But the song that he has, all I want to say is that They Don't Really Care About Us. For me, that song is an awesome song. I love it to death, but I wanted to share some lyrics from that song. In the bridge part of it, he says, sometimes things in life they just don't want to see. But if Martin Luther was living, he wouldn't let this be. And the whole song, he's off in a different country, and he's listing off all these different things. But if you really listen to the heart of what he's saying, all I want to say is that they don't really care about us. As he keeps going, he says this: skinhead, deadhead, everybody gone bad. Situation, segregation, everybody allegation in the suit on the news. Everybody dog food. Kick me, don't you wrong right me. He's literally saying, in this moment, in this situation, in this life, in his world, he's at the bottom. And here he was as a person who, in our eyes and in the public eyes, greater than anything. You know, he was a pop star across the world. But that inward battle that we got to witness, it leads me to believe that a lot of that had to do with that back. If you are lighter, you're more loved, you're more valuable, you're worth so much more than what you are if you're a darker skinned person. So it really made me rethink a lot of things in my own personal journey, honestly.
So I mean, a lot of what I'm hearing you say is like, man, this quote unquote black on black crime, like the way that people have been pitted against each other for years, right, is really a source of that, you know. But the interesting piece for me is I think that so many people want to they want to bring that up, because you'll hear, well, if they'll just stop killing each other, right, and it's just, you know, I'm just thinking about this as you're talking, and so I wish I had a thought about it earlier, just so I can, maybe this is some homework for all of us. But like, you know, like, how many white people kill white people, and how many
Right.
Hispanic people kill Hispanic
Right.
people, and
Right.
you know, and so much of it is that, I mean, there's so much hate in hearts, and there's so much just wanting to get ahead, and that's even what you saw when you were talking about the house slave and the field slave.
Yep.
You know, like you want to get ahead, you want to do this. Like I remember you saying when we were talking the other day, and you were kind of talking about this to me. You know, like the jealousy that would come in and trying to get ahead.
Yes.
A field slave looking at a house slave, and a house slave is now getting this opportunity that the field slave wasn't getting.
Right.
Not because they were jealous maybe of their living situation. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. But the house slave didn't have the rights to be taught to read, write, any of that kind of thing. Right. And definitely didn't happen for the field slave. But what was happening is that the house slave was picking up on these things as it happened inside the house.
And here's the real thing, Chris, that really sat down with me this week as I was processing through this. The reality is the house slave was getting to pick up on the privileges. The privileges that the white slave owners had for their kids. I mean, think about it. If you're in the field, you're not in the house. It was at one point illegal for a black person to be able to read. Literally. If you could read, you would be punished by law. So when we start this whole narrative of understanding privilege, if you go back, it was a privilege to be able to serve in the house because you got to be indoors, but you were able to see and pick up and learn things without being caught. But then think about it, that still gave that person the advantage, that house slave the advantage over the field slave. It gave them more knowledge, it gave them more access, it gave them a closer relationship. You know, that's the biggest tension in understanding this, is having conversation and relationship. So wouldn't you think that the people who were in the house would feel better than the field slave? I mean, so when you start talking about the black on black tension, this as a black person is a tension and has been a tension in the black community since I was born, and I'm pretty sure clearly way before I was born, but definitely something that I personally, you know, have known, seen, and experienced, and it's something that is talked about. It's not like we're just creating that. So that's why I recently I shared it clicked in my mind, and I shared that I am a privileged black male. I am, because my parents are based on statistics and how they roll out. But yes, my parents are still together. My parents are still literally would help me out right now if I needed anything from them. My parents made sure we had the best that we could have. So when you look at the roster of, there's a video, you posted the video a few weeks ago, which really got us going, you know. And I said, all of those things on that list, that's me. But I'm still invited in the room, but I don't get a seat at the table. And that's when that tension of privilege comes in. It's like, I want to accept, and I think I know I did years ago, but I didn't verbalize it. I accepted that I'm very privileged, and I will own it. But the reality is, I still fit into the category of the house slave. I'm privileged, but I should consider it a privilege that I'm even allowed to be in the space of others. And so, I mean, when you think about it, it's still kind of, this is a lot for me to start just thinking through and processing, because there's a lot of relationships and conversations that I've had that it's coming up now in a great way, but then it's like, man, there's so much you knew, but you learn to push through. You know, I know a lot of black people say, man, I feel like I have to work twice as hard, and people say, well, you just say that, and it's like, no, you don't really understand. I have to work twice as hard to just be in situations and to be in conversation, and this week has been crazy for me, just thinking through a lot of this and experiencing it, because it hurts when people say, well, what about black on black crime? It kills me, because it's the deflection of the real issue.
Yes, and that's the thing. And that's the thing that I think as people who want to be cycle breakers, right? Like, we can't let someone steal the narrative.
Right.
And deflect and steal the narrative away from what's really happening and what's really real. You know, like, there's part of me, like, I look and I'm like, we're not talking about black on black crime. We're not talking about white on white crime. We're talking about police brutality of a man who was held down and pinned and had a knee in his neck for 9 minutes. 2 minutes of that, he's not even breathing anymore. This is not about black on black crime right now. And it's something that we need to talk about. Like, even when I asked you about that this week and you started talking about the field, it helped with the education of it, right?
Right.
But it's not the narrative of it.
Right. It's not. And, you know, I want to say this. Everyone who ever watches this and sees this, hear my heart. If we want to really support police officers, we have to stop making them the target.
Yes.
That is the issue. When we look at the tensions between the black community and the white community and police officers, if you look at the history, and I know I said this last week, but if you look at the history of it, typically, as Michael Jackson was saying in his song, he says, everybody gone mad, situation, segregation, everybody allegation in the suit, on the news. What do you think he's telling us?
Come on.
What do you think he's telling us? He's literally... It blows my mind. It literally... It's like... I don't think I was emotionally prepared to process through some of this stuff. Because that's the place where it brings hurt to me, because so many lives are being taken. And we are having this rage war between police officers and the community and it goes both ways. Here's the piece. I think that there are people of color in the black community and of color who do keep pouring fuel on the fire for the issue with cops, because it's there. I also think there's people that are white that are using them as a scapegoat, because what they are saying is, it's probably my husband, it's probably my wife, it's really me, but I am in control of the narrative. So all police lives matters, we're here for the blue, you guys you need to respect authority. And it's like, wait a minute, you're putting a target on them. You're pouring fuel into the fire. Or then, Chris, it goes to the place where really it becomes a political issue that really then hides a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people are more committed to their party than they are to people.
Come on. Say it again for the people in the back.
For the people in the back. And I genuinely say this from the bottom of my heart. If you are committed to your party more than you are to people, then in 2023, people will still be looting. People will still be rioting. People will still be fighting. There will still be hatred, but it will multiply. Because at some point, every person who has been beaten down wants to rise up. And all they need is one person to come along and give them the little push. But now you're seeing this crazy wave of people saying, wait, enough is enough. It's time to change. But I said this in the group the other day. If someone wants to have a conversation with you and they only want to talk about a party, peace out. Peace out. Because if they want to talk about the party, they're not trying to talk about peace. They're not trying to talk about healing. They're not trying to talk about restoration. They're just trying to talk about an election. And guess what? I walk through racial tensions every day. The presidential election happens how many years apart?
Yeah, come on, 4 years. So if we're going to wait 4 years, man, for it to change.
Crazy.
We're going to wait 2 years in the next cycle for Congress and Senate and all those types of things to change. I think this may go a little out of order than what we talked about. But
go for it.
Segment, right? Like, here's my question to you. You're talking about party. We're talking about this kind of stuff, right? People have asked the question, man, can we really legislate part change? right?
Yeah.
And I started thinking the other day, like, especially like, I grew up in upper middle class family, you know, like I think everyone in my family that I've ever known has probably been a Republican, right?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to me as I'm watching the narrative right now. Okay. So here's what I've noticed. I've noticed right now when we talk about can you legislate heart change, it's amazing to me that as we talk about race and racism, when we talk about those things, we say we need to change people's hearts.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's a heart thing.
It's a heart issue, and that's where it is, yeah.
Yeah. But when we talk about abortion, we've got to legislate it.
Come on, somebody. Chris.
When we talk about abortion, it's we've got to legislate it, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, my thing is this is like, man, do not hear me say that legislation is not important.
Right. Yeah.
Do not hear me say that every 2 years and every 4 years when we vote, that's not important. It's vital. It's vital, right?
Right. I agree.
But
I agree.
You can't legislate heart change.
You can't.
You can't do it. I'm going to try to like really quickly go through this because this blew my mind when we started talking about this the other day, Frank.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me walk everyone through this for just a second here. Let me check this out right here. When you start talking about legislation, let me just kind of give you the history, right? Because what we're talking about tonight is where have we been and where are we going?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So in the year 1619, slavery comes to North America. All right. So check that out. That's right at 400 years ago. Now, don't be fooled, guys, to think that like what we're dealing with is thousands and thousands dinosaur years old.
Nope.
Okay? This is just 400 years old. That's not that long ago.
Yep.
When you look in the grand scheme of things, right? So slavery comes to North America in 1619. All right? 240 something, somewhere in there, 242 years later, the Civil War erupts in America. Now, here's the thing about this. So many people look at the Civil War and they think that the Civil War was about abolishing slavery. It wasn't. What it started off as was to preserve the Union.
Yep.
Lincoln realized that people wouldn't just go to war to free slaves. People wouldn't do that. The Civil War was almost a byproduct.
Right.
Right. Slavery ending was almost a byproduct of the Civil War. It was really to preserve the Union, right?
But isn't that crazy? I mean, just think about that alone.
Yes.
That alone gives you clarity that it really wasn't important to value human life for people of color. Like,
you wouldn't go to war to value human life, but you would to preserve the Union.
Yeah.
Right? So that happens. And then in 1863, in the middle of the war, now listen to that. In the middle of the war is when Lincoln gives the Emancipation Proclamation. And Lincoln didn't actually free any of the approximate, like I think it was like 400 million men, women, children that are slaves in the United States at this point when he signed this, right? This document, the Emancipation Proclamation, it only applied to the Confederates, the people enslaved in the Confederacy, and not the border states that remained loyal to the Union. So even in the Emancipation Proclamation, legislation...
Right, come on.
Right? Legislation only half. But it comes in 1865, slavery is abolished by the 13th Amendment, okay? So, but here's the thing with this 13th Amendment that we need to understand. Guys, all this right here, history.com, I spent like 3 hours.
Chris has been doing his research.
Like, it has blown me away this week. Like, I am just like, I'm reading all this, right? It's available to you, okay? Our job is to educate ourselves. It's not to go to someone and say, hey, teach me. Listen, all I am right here is I'm just a beggar who has found some bread and I want to share the bread with you.
Come on now.
All right?
Come on,
here's
man.
the deal. So slavery is abolished by the 13th Amendment in 1865, but in that there's this thing called black codes. And what black codes are is they're a series of law that restricted black people's activity and ensured they would still be available into the labor force. Okay, so it's gone, but now white people start putting in these black codes. So, an example, if you weren't working then, you were breaking the law. But the only jobs that were available to black people were low-paying jobs. And so if you refuse this low-paying job as a black person,
you're breaking the law.
You're breaking the law, then you're going to jail, and you're doing, right? You see the cycle, right? Hey, here's the thing. That is when the 13th Amendment, right, when it comes, man, what does it do right there? It's legislation. All right, I'm going to keep rolling really quick, Frank. 1866.
Take your time. These are the facts.
Yes, the 14th Amendment. What does it do? It grants the citizenship for former slaves, and it also, listen to this, equal protection of the laws is what it says. 1866. Okay? Why do they have to pass another amendment to the 13th Amendment, say that you're not a slave anymore, that you're a person? But now we got to pass another legislation to say, man, there's equal laws for you. You have protection from it. 4 years later, 15th Amendment. It grants citizens the right to vote. You weren't just a citizen in 1866.
Previously.
Right? The 14th Amendment, it gave you citizenship, which every citizen at that point should have had, what? The right to vote.
The right to vote, right.
But now 4 years later, what do we have to do? We have to pass another amendment.
Hey, think about this. Every law-abiding citizen.
Come on. And why is that important?
Because I'm containing myself. I mean, think about that. How many times, if in the narrative of today is if you would just obey the law. If those black boys would just obey the law.
Yep. Now, this is crazy to me, Frank, right? So you've taken these steps forward from in 1865. Now we got to do another one in 1866. We're legislating. But now here's what we're going to do is we're going to legislate the Separate but Equal Act in 1896.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we took some steps forward, but now we're going to maybe kind of take a couple steps back. We're going to have separate schools, railroad cars, theaters, barbershops, restaurants, etc. And the Supreme Court in the Separate but Equal Act rules that the 14th Amendment meant that you could have equal protection as long, but you can also now be separate as long as there are reasonable, equal conditions. Crazy.
No,
right?
the real in my reality. That's what that is.
Now this is where, like, if I'm just being honest with you, like, this is where my blood started boiling, right? As I start reading down through this. History.com, guys, like, history.com, I'm reading this for like 3 hours Sunday evening, okay? So 1896, you have the Separate but Equal Act. But 58 years later, 58 years, we legislate, no heart change, right? 58 years later, the Brown versus the Board of Education comes out.
Yes.
It says this, it passes from the Separate but Equal Act. It takes that away, and it took nearly 60 years to bring legislation to bring this change. While the legislation changed, though, the goalpost really changed more. All right?
100%.
So here's what happens. We start integrating schools. We start trying to integrate neighborhoods and all this. Frank, I saw this on someone's Facebook page. I wish I could give them credit for it, but I don't remember who it was now. Okay?
Whoever it was, we thank you.
We thank you. Let me read this to you, okay?
All right, go for it.
I grew up in Midland, Texas. I graduated from Robert E. Lee High School. Our team was the Rebels. Our mascot was General Lee. In the courtyard of our school, we had a Confederate cannon. And as recent as 1998, stars and bars, Confederate flags were flown on Friday night football games. 1998, Frank.
That's the year my sister graduated high school. I was in 7th grade that year.
Our fight song was On, Ye Rebels, followed immediately by Dixie. So here's this guy, and he's in high school. All this happened, and here's what he says. Not once did it ever cross my mind what all that might mean to my black friends growing up with me in that environment. You see, Robert E. Lee High School was the second high school in town. It opened in 1961, 7 years after the Brown versus the Board of Education. Most Texas cities fought back against the desegregation federal law. As they began to lose those battles, primarily due to federal funding loss, the local school districts opened up new schools. Because of redlining during the Jim Crow era, there were already predominantly white neighborhoods, and predominantly black neighborhoods.
I want to pause before you go there. If anyone has not looked and researched Jim Crow and that alone, please, this is no Hollywood-made movie. We can't blame the media for that. Please go and check that out. It will rattle your world if you did. Sorry, keep going.
No, that's good. So listen to this right here. Black families were literally deed restricted from purchasing homes in white neighborhoods for decades. Interest rates to purchase homes in black neighborhoods, this is where I talked about the goalpost moves, right?
Right.
Interest rates to purchase homes in black neighborhoods were substantially higher, making it more difficult for black families to build wealth. It was even harder to get commercial financing to build grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, retail, and more in the black neighborhoods. City governments intentionally spent infrastructure money to encourage development on the white side of town and worse, to isolate the black side of town. So property values were vastly different between the white neighborhood and the black neighborhoods. School funding, I'm going to get on my soapbox here. School funding is tied directly to property values. Guys, this is 60, 70 years ago, right? And it's still happening right now. So the white neighborhood had higher paid teachers, better facilities, more extracurricular activities, etc., because their property values and taxes were higher. The laws were changed. Legislation was changed in the 60s, but hearts did not. To get around desegregation, they just built new schools. And if you lived in one part of town, you went to the new school. If you lived in the other part of town, you went to the other school. And go ahead and guess how they did the property lines, right?
Well, how do you think they did that, Chris?
I mean, come on.
Can I tell you how they did it?
How?
The house slaves still were outside. But they were closer. They were closer to that line because you know why? It was a privilege for them to be a little bit closer to the white community. But those who would have been considered field slaves were even further out in what we probably refer to as the ghetto. I mean, do you see? Yeah.
This right here, Frank, listen to this. And just in case you were black and happened to be able to buy a home in a predominantly white neighborhood because the laws had changed so that white people could no longer deed restrict homes from a certain race, they went ahead and named the building and the mascot after a Confederate general and an army, and placed a Civil War era cannon in the courtyard where you eat lunch every day as a not so subtle reminder of what side of town you were on. It's the same reason you see Confederate statues on government property all over the South that were erected in the 60s.
And I want to say this, Chris. So many people on social media now, and just in conversations, I've had 2 conversations this week with different people about this, and like, this is our those Confederate soldiers and generals, they're our history. Why would we do this? The reality is, why would you be proud of something like this? But they don't know enough to know their real history.
Yeah.
That's the truth. They are standing up and fighting for something because they've been told this is our history. But really, it's that racism that is deep embedded that they have no clue that they have, because they think that they are fighting for something that's a part of their history. And the reality is, there's a lot of black history that is not in the story of the American history.
Yeah.
1 month, a year.
Yeah. I mean, come on. And I'm learning this right now as I'm reading this, right? Like, I'm a fairly educated guy, right? And I'm learning this right now as I'm reading this.
Right.
And the outrage that comes in me as I read this. And here's the thing, man. You say, well, man, Chris, that was in the 60s and things have changed and there's not this or that. But you walk around and, you know, you'll hear people say, well, you want to be careful in that part of town.
That part of town.
That's the dangerous part of town. And the majority of the time when they're going to talk about that, it's going to be from people who are in a more low income, right? They're people who are, you know, majority of them are black and brown. They're Hispanic.
Right.
They're coming from the minority, right?
Right.
And here's the thing that just blows my mind when you look in these places, okay? Where I live today in Middle Tennessee, I can walk outside, I can get in my car right now, and I think within the 5-minute drive, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 10, I can find 6 legitimate grocery stores.
Oh, of course. Probably 2 of the same. Blocks apart.
I mean, like, I've got a Kroger on this side of town.
Right.
On this side of town, right?
Right.
If you go into that side of town, the other side of the tracks, however someone may, this racial term that they would use for this, right? You go there today, there's probably not a neighborhood, there's probably not a grocery store in that neighborhood.
No. Nope.
There's convenience stores,
yep.
And this shows you guys, listen to this. If you walk into your Kroger, your Publix, your Walmart, hear me, this is not bashing them. This is not them.
No.
Right? This is how laws are written. This is tax properties. This is all this kind of stuff, right? I go in there and I can buy a gallon of milk. This shows you a little bit of my ignorance. My wife takes care of me so well at my house, but like, I may be able to go in and buy a gallon of milk for $2.50, right? Someone's probably going to correct me on Facebook saying, man, you're crazy, right? But here's the point to this. You go into the convenience store, and you're going to pay $3.30,
right?
$3.50.
Right.
You can't get the proper nutrition. You can't get all the fruits and vegetables at these convenience stores, right? Like,
no.
You can't get any of this stuff.
You can't. You're not. Well, you're not even getting healthy things. You know, like you're not even getting the things that you need, the things that is important for you to have, for you to be able to even to be healthy physically. You're getting the leftovers.
Yeah.
Even if they're decent. But then it's like, well, black people have all these eating habits and all these eating issues. I wonder why. Because at the same time as certain people wouldn't want to go to certain parts of town, they know it's not safe to go to the other part of town.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you want to go risk your life for some food? That's the reality that still exists today in a lot of ways.
Let me throw this out, and then I want to move on to the next question because I could talk all day about this.
I know. I love that you're passionate. You have a new pastime now.
I drive down the street in my neighborhood, in my town here. Dude, there are, for every 3 buildings, I feel like there's 2 banks.
Listen.
Like I feel like there's
more than 2.
I mean, honestly, like you look around, and so here's the thing: like you go into that side of town, and you can't find a bank anywhere in the neighborhood.
Oh, but you know what you can find?
What's that?
Yeah, I'll tell you what you can find: advance cash, where we're going to charge you 25% per dollar to give you your $75 paycheck. It's you're going to find quite a few of those.
And so you have here. That's the difference, right? Like I feel like hundreds of banks. Let's just say a dozen banks here, right? And there's probably a dozen cash check places here, right? But so much of building wealth and getting loans and building a business and doing all these things come from relationships.
Yep.
Right?
It does.
I the PPP loan that just came out, you read right now, so many people couldn't get into the program because they didn't have a relationship with their banker.
Right.
Right? Because what's the banker going to do? He's going to go to the people he has relationships with first.
Of course
Rightfully
he is.
so. Right?
Yep.
And so what happens is they go to these people, that happens, and then I saw where Magic Johnson, he gave out loans to black businesses, female black businesses, because they didn't have the relationships. Why? Because, man, they don't have that in their neighborhood of where they live.
Right.
And so here's what I'm going to encourage you to do today. Okay, and I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then we're gonna try to stick to our time like we've told people, right?
Yeah, we have two. We may go a little bit over because there's two topics that I really.
Yep.
If they can't be with us, they can leave. But I really want to make sure there's two things I share tonight.
So, here's what I want to encourage you to do. If you have any kind of influence, right? If you have any kind of influence in any kind of way in any of these types of things, I'm praying that you will begin to be just stirred by the Lord.
Right.
That you may have to look and say, to help this, you may have to not gain $2. You may only gain $1. Here's what I mean by that. You may have to put a grocery store in a part of town where you might have made two, but now you only make one.
Right.
You may have to put a bank in a place where you would have made two, but now you're only going to make one.
Right.
If you have influence, you have privilege. If you have those things, use it.
Right. And Chris, that's the place right now where a lot of people will say, well, I don't have privilege. If you will just take 30 minutes and instead of posting a relevant thing that you feel that really promotes your party, and I don't care what side of the table you're on, it goes both ways, to really look at the research. That's why I am okay with saying I am a privileged black male. And so when you talk about using your privilege in a way, and I lied, I had three things I want to share. So I'm going to make them quick. So with what I've done over the years, I have been a dreamer. I just look at things. I'm like, I want to do bigger things. And I've been blessed to work with different shows and meet different people along the way. And with the show so when COVID hit and everything shut down, none of my shows, I hadn't worked since March, so everything stopped. But in my heart, I was like, man, I need something to do. But then I just kept thinking about the class of 2020. So I was like, man, there should be something for them. So I reached out to this group on Facebook that has a lot of dance studios, and it's been very, very hard for small businesses like crazy. But so I reached out to them and I was like, I want to do something for your seniors, and I sent out like 200 emails. It was kind of like this: hey, Chris, you want to do something? Like, oh, Chris, she said, okay, here we go. So, but I've been able to meet some amazing kids over the past few weeks. Now, the thing was, they didn't know me. They didn't have a clue who I was. But I also wanted it to make the experience be so much more than what it was, being that I don't have a crazy following and all this. I really just wanted to give them something special. The show airs on Saturday nights on Facebook and YouTube. It's called The Dancer. But so I reached out to a friend in Arkansas. She's a white female who is a weapon for the kingdom. Very amazing business woman. Her name is Debbie Alsop, and I get emotional when I think about it. So I'm going to focus. I called her, and we had worked together from afar at different shows. She sponsored her company. Eco Tools would sponsor a lot of things for the girls and shows that I produce. So I wanted to have gifts, and she did not hesitate. I couldn't even tell her what I wanted to do before she's like, I'm in, I want to sponsor it. I'm in, whatever you want. Now, here's the deal. This was just a few weeks ago when people were losing jobs. She was not able to have her factory working and her people working. And I want you guys to check her out. Eco Tools, they're amazing makeup product brand. My wife loves all their things. But what I want to say is, here's the big thing. With her branding on what I, as a black male, was wanting to do, it gave me some validity and weight to what I was trying to create for the seniors and those dance studios. I called her this week to have her permission to tell this story because I wanted to make sure she was okay with that, because she's not asking me to do anything, but it really means a lot to me. And she literally didn't even give me 2 seconds to get everything out of my mouth before she said, Frank, I've seen what you've done and I over the years, and I'm in whatever it is. She sent me a palette full of things to send these girls, and it's exciting. But here's what she said. I said, Debbie, I said this to her. I said, I was nervous at first reaching out to you because I've never asked for anything, and I didn't want to make it like I was asking for a handout or anything. And she stopped me and she said, I'm going to tell you this right here. It's not about a handout. It's not about a hand up. I'm about a handoff.
Oh, come on.
Dude, like, that's taking your privilege, taking your blessing, and putting it to work. That's a tangible way of saying, I want to see other people succeed, especially a black person. Now, I'm not saying that she sat back and thought, oh, let me look for this black person. She didn't have to, because there was already a relationship of consistency throughout the years that honestly, I felt comfortable enough to reach out to her.
Yeah.
To say, hey, would you be interested in doing this? That's how today we can, when people say, what can I do to help out? There was someone that posted in our group about black entrepreneurs and people. Let me tell you this. Black people are some of the most driven, focused, all people of color, I would say that, are because of the years of not being able to just do, not having the freedom. We have found ourselves, a lot of times it's confused with anger. You probably felt like I was angry a lot tonight. That's just passion. That's all that is. That's passion. That is desire to just be more than what I know. At times when I walk into a room, we know the looks. we know them. So I just wanted to use that as an example of why it is important for people to be okay with accepting their privilege. Because of what she did, that allowed me to have some weight being a black male to all these random people who did not know me. But when I got to say, hey, this company is doing this, and you should have seen, they're all on Instagram, you know, they were like, oh, this is so awesome. Like, it made the experience go to the next level. And I was, so I again, a shout out to Debbie. Thank you for doing that. And I'll tell you this, when she told me I'm about to hand off, man, boy.
Hey, let me take that and give folks on our stream, like, let me give them something that maybe they can take with that. Okay?
Yeah.
Hand out, hand up, we've heard all of that, right? I love the hand off.
Right.
Here's what people like me do, that so many times I want to do something, right? And a lot of times I say, I don't want to do a handout, I'm going to do a hand up to someone. And it normally starts happening, Frank, like especially in the white person community right here. It starts happening when I start feeling guilty at Christmas, when I look underneath. I look underneath my Christmas tree, right?
Yep.
And I see all the gifts that I've got my kids. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to spoil my kids. I got to show them now. I got to show them now that it's not just about the gifts. We got to go give it to someone else, right?
Right.
And so what do? I go to the mall, or I go to my church, or I go to wherever, and I go and I get the little
angel tree.
Yeah. Right. And I make myself feel really good. I go get this tree. I go buy these gifts. I sometimes will even go over to the person's house, and I'll hand them these gifts, right? And what I'm really doing is then I say, hey, come take a selfie with me.
Yep.
Hey, right? I'm gonna take this selfie. I'm gonna post it to Instagram so everyone knows. Like, man, look at me.
Chris, I sure hope you don't lose some friends on Facebook tonight.
Listen, I think between me asking about abortion and all that, I think I'm just a nose plummet. I take this picture, I'll post it to Instagram. Listen, I'm preaching because I've done it, right?
Yeah.
And then the next year, what am I doing again? The next year, I'm looking for the same thing. That's a hand out. That's a hand up. Here's how you do, what is it? A hand off.
Hand off.
Right?
Hand off.
What if instead of looking for someone again a year from now, what if you really walked in their life for the next year?
Right. Because how cool would that be to know that this year you went to that person and you did help them, you invested in them, but you journeyed with them throughout the year. And then the next year, you, along with that family, went to that same tree and got 2 more families. And then now you're teaching and helping that person see the value in whatever that tension is. But then also, you may be in their life for more than that season of Christmas.
Yes.
I believe that the Lord ordains our steps. That meeting could be that what you do in your vocation could be something that can really help them. Or maybe they just need to know how to parent better. Or this is what we've learned through adoption. Maybe there's more that they can teach you than you could ever give them.
Come on.
Way more.
Yeah, for sure.
But we miss that sometimes. I'm guilty with our own privilege where we're giving them, we're helping them out. And it's like, if you really got to know them, they're probably going to help you process, grow, and learn things that you never thought you would have.
Let's not be people who are handouts, hand-ups. Let's be hand-offs.
Hand-off.
Sure.
I'm telling you, when she said that, I was like, come on.
What was another question this week that stuck out to you?
I think one of the main things was just understanding how to listen to, who to listen to online, because the social media is there, and I don't think it's an issue with social media. That's the other tension is every tool that we have, it's how we use it.
Yep.
It's how we use it. And I've said this earlier tonight, you can't erase the hurt and the brokenness with racism if you don't remove the party and its lines. And that's what I quickly want to hit on and address. But there's individuals out there that I am not, they're on both sides, but there's 2 that have been very prominent in the media. And there is a female, and I want to first say this, I want to very much show them respect as a black male. Because again, if I don't value and respect them as human, I'm doing that black on black house slave, slave thing. So as individuals, I respect them at what they do and how they carry themselves. I want to make that very clear. But I also have a huge issue with them because they create this tension that will not in any way, shape, form, or fashion bring healing to this issue.
Right.
And Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum, Officer Brandon Tatum are their names. And the sad thing is they have the opportunity to actually be buffers, but they're not. They're not. And the way they come at everything is if you go back and watch any of their clips, if they can get through without saying conservative, but they can't. That's the reality. And I want to say this because they know their customer.
Yep.
Hear me say this. They know their customer. They know their target audience. They know how to get what they need and want. So they're going to say the buzzwords. They're going to say and convey and do everything. And you know what? A lot of the times they may be giving you the facts, but they're not giving you the cure to the tension of racism. They're giving you the clickbait so that you can...
Clickbait fills your pockets, man.
It fills them up. But that clickbait only fuels the debate. It doesn't make room for conversation. It only allows for them to prove certain things, to defame people. And at the end of the day, it's irrelevant.
Yeah. Because
if we really want to see lives change and we really want to see this hurt be removed, don't tell me, well, and I'll just be very transparent, Chris. What they have learned is most white people, especially even the conservative and liberal and all these things, they believe that most of them need that one black friend that they can trust. So they're going to say the things that are going to make you think, well, I listen to them because they're so right. That makes well, she's black, and if she's black and he's black, and they said, oh, and he was a police officer. But what I want to say is, I don't need them to tell me my story.
Wow.
Don't let them tell you my story. Be in a relationship with people like me so that you can hear my story. Why? Because I can sit here today, and if I told you my story in a moment where racism was thick in my life, it was a police officer who spoke life into me, who gave me love, who gave me grace. Yeah. When another white male who was dressed in a suit was using that officer to inflict a stereotypical thing on me.
Yeah. Listen, man, if you want to find the narrative that fits who you are, that fits what you believe, you can find it.
You can find it just like that without even trying.
And what we've got to do is we got to fight through the narrative. We got to fight through people who are telling us what we want to hear only to fuel us.
Right.
We don't want to. You don't need to be fueled anymore.
And that's the place where, and I know we've said this, Chris, but it's we have to pull back on the party piece. No political party is going to bring healing to this. It should be us pastoring. The priesthood of all believers should be speaking life into each other, speaking truth, grace and truth. Grace and truth means, hey, we messed up. We haven't seen things. We haven't heard. We haven't listened. We haven't processed through. But the truth is out there now. So guess what? Something's going to change. We are going to see to it that we're going to have stories like Debbie. You know, we're going to see to it that the kids on my softball team, I'm going to make sure I'm having them at my house so that all our friends aren't splitting ways and then these kids go hang out at the restaurant and the other kids go. No, we're in this together.
That's right.
Together to do life together.
And this isn't a political issue.
No.
What we're talking about.
No, because
that's what we have to continue to remind ourselves.
We have to, because
this is a humanity.
Yes. Right? Yes.
Hey, I'm going to lose all my Facebook friends just in all one time tonight, right? Here's what I'm going to tell you right here about politics for just a half a second. Listen, guys, if you agree with everything your party says, you're blind. You are blind.
Yeah.
If you can't disagree and you can't stand up for something that's morally right because your party says this or that, you've got the blinders on.
Right.
You've got to start reading something other than what someone tells you believe.
Right.
You've got to start reading history. You've got to start reading facts. You've got to start reading the other side because it'll begin to tell you what's really happening.
And that goes both ways.
Yes.
That goes both ways. I can't say that enough because the reality is there's people on both sides saying, in the end, I just want to win. So who cares if you guys are fighting each other? Guess what? Again, as I said, the election happens when? Every now and then. Racism happens when? Every single day.
That's exactly right.
Every single day. Chris, I know that we have pushed past the time and there's a little kick delay in this response, but I don't know if everyone out there who's joining us, who's still with us, cares if we hopped into about 10-15 more minutes of something or if we kept moving on. But as they get the chance to reply on that, I just want to say it is important for us to look at the racial tensions that we have and accept them. But it's more important for us to see the privilege, because when I value the privilege that I have, I literally want to do what has happened to me. I want to be a handoff. I want to see that other black person, see that other white person, see all these different pieces to say, hey, I want to be able to speak life into or give opportunity to or help out in a way that allows someone else to grow, someone else to be able to do. Everyone's saying keep going. someone else to be able to do.
That's right. All right, I'm gonna stir it up and ask you a question, and they want you to keep going.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Bro, kneel or stand?
Oh, all right.
Bro, NFL comes out this week, right?
It does.
2016, I think Kaepernick kneels for the first time, right?
Yeah.
So literally for 3-4 football seasons now, like it's just been an ongoing thing. We talked about this the other night, you know, and a little bit of it comes back to what you said of like, you should just feel honored that you're even in the room.
Even in the room.
You don't even need to be at the table. You started sharing something with me about the anthem that I had no idea about.
Yeah. So
tell us about that.
So I'm hoping I gain more Facebook friends from this, because this is all truth. So when you really look at what we shared tonight about the house slave, field slave, it was a privilege to be in the room for the house slave. That was made known, and it still carries today. So what a lot of people, I don't think, understand and process, and I want to show it in a way of the cycle that I previously showed, is to really understand what that means when someone says you should be okay. Now, I love the national anthem. I grew up in a small town, and I wanted to sing and perform and do that. It was the only thing you could do. Rodeos, football games, basketball games, but I'm ready at any point. If anyone needs an anthem singer, I'm your guy. But in the midst of that cycle, to say you shouldn't be using this platform for this because it is a privilege, and this country has given you this and given you that. The reality is, this country is given by law these privileges, but has stripped all of the true beliefs, the true heart of black people away, people of color away from them. That's why a lot of the things you said tonight is historically like, wait, what? Is that real? That's why it's like, oh, well, we only have February to talk about Black History Month. And the reason I say that is I am not trying to negate, kneel, or stand for the anthem. What I'm trying to say is the privilege to have that anthem means that I don't have the privilege to sing the Black Negro National Anthem.
I didn't even know until you told me this there was such a thing.
Yes, sir. Lift Every Voice and Sing is the Negro National Anthem that many people have no clue even exists. And I wanted to take the time tonight to share it with you guys. It's not the full thing. You can look it up. But I had my sister to sing some of it for us, and I'll see if it'll play for us right here.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Come on, somebody.
Yes.
Now I got to give my sister a shout out because she can sing. But so that's just the first verse. The other part of the song is all about hope. It's all about the story of slaves. I mean, it was written. James Weldon Johnson is the man who wrote it, and his brother actually did the music to it. And if you go through it, talks about the choice of abortion. I mean, abortion and the death of wanting to be dead over living, because that seemed to be the better life. It talked about being beat. It talked about the weight of being a slave. And so when you think about the national anthem, and people say you have a privilege and what that song means and has done for you, it's like, that is my privilege because by law my anthem was erased and taken out of the equation. So I'm forced to accept what I've been given. Not saying that I don't respect the national anthem and the flag. I'm not saying that. I just really want us to be able to understand what we're saying when we get mad and say, how dare you kneel for that? Instead of saying, wait a minute, you had a national anthem that was taken and thrown away. That's just the surface of black history that was a part of this country. That has been silenced, that has been choked, that has been removed. So if we want to keep trying to understand why someone would use that as an opportunity, it's because you only can speak out with the platform you have. And remember that word. I've seen people post this, that Kaepernick should consider it a privilege that he even gets to play football. Just as well as the house slave had to consider it a privilege to work in the house. The field slave had to consider it a privilege that the slave master even wanted to keep him and not sell him off.
You know, one of the things that, so I'll be honest with you, this has been one of those for me over the last couple of years. It has been a lot of tension for me. You know, just trying to figure it out. But here's what I realized, that so many times the things that we're the greatest offended by is the things that have become the biggest idols in our hearts.
100%.
And, you know, it's the things that we hold probably higher than maybe what we should. And don't hear me say, like, I'm not proud of our country. I'm not proud to live here.
I'm telling you, if you need a national anthem singer, I got you.
You come on over. We're just gonna we'll sing it together. Like we'll go. I'll be on mute. We'll do all that kind of
right.
But man, like, here's what I realized is that so many times we jump so hard at someone that offends us that we don't even listen to what they're saying. Right? And maybe we just need to stop and say, what is it? Could it have been lost in translation? Could it have been done better? Could it have? Here's what happens: is someone hijacks the agenda. Right. And so, I just encourage you, man. Slow down. Stop a little bit. Listen to what's happening. Don't listen to speak. Listen to understand. Ask, does something in my heart need to be changed? Listen again. And then even decide, do I even need to speak?
Right. And, you know, I personally I struggle with that. Honestly, just a human flaw. But there's a phrase to say ownership of you need to respect my flag. You need to respect our flag and all these different things. And it's like, but if you did your research, that was given to me. And it wasn't a beautiful adoption. It wasn't. So, yes, I as I said, I can kill the national anthem. I love it. I loved it. I love singing. I genuinely do love singing the national anthem. But when you wave all the other things in front of me, and then you want to say, well, you need to realize how privileged you were. If you just follow that back to where we started, to think about what that really means to me as a black male. It's the same thing I said. I'm privileged enough to be in the room, but not at your table. And if I disrespect you in your house, you don't need to be in my house, right? That's kind of what people are saying. How dare you're in our country? When they say our, am I not a part of that our?
Bro, this has been fun tonight.
This has been insane. Technical difficulties and all.
It's, you know, like, I hope as, you know, we kind of wrap up here, you know, the way that we become cycle breakers, right? It's not just about where we should go. Right? We've got to understand where we have been. You know, and before you can really bring real, tangible solutions, you have to bring real, tangible understanding.
Right. You have to
So
know.
I'm going to encourage you,
Yeah.
folks, like, go out, read. It's fascinating. And don't depend on your schools 1 month a year to educate our kids.
Don't depend on your churches, on your neighbor, on it's everything.
Yes.
Everything.
So, man, it's been fun, guys, and we're really grateful that you hung out with us tonight.
Definitely.
We'll repost this. It'll be online. You can share it with your friends. You guys let us know, man. Do we do another one of these? What should we talk about? Really and truly, what this is you getting to listen into a conversation that we have almost every Sunday night right now.
Yeah.
And we just want to bring it to you all. And so, man, continue to post, continue to ask. Like Frank has said in the group, man, we really protect what is posted in the group through comments, because we want to make sure we stay on topic. We want to make sure we stay on course. We don't want to let the narrative change from what we want to become. What we want to become is we want to become cycle breakers.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want in 10 years, in 30 years, when my kids are my age in 30 years from now, right?
Right.
I don't want my kids to be sitting on something like this, having the same conversations again.
Right. And as I said, if we don't release the parties and focus on the people, we will.
That's right. That's right. Guys, this was fun.
It's been awesome.
Frank, good hanging out with you again tonight, man.
You as well, man. Have a good night, and we'll see everyone online at some point.
See you guys.
Bye.